The morning that changed two broken lives forever began with a knock on a weathered front door that no one expected to matter. A single father carrying nothing but a small bag of groceries and a quiet heart full of kindness stood on a porch he had visited every day for months. When the door slowly opened, he froze. The person looking back at him was the very boss who had fired him without mercy just weeks earlier. Neither of them spoke. One carried painful memories. The other carried a secret that would change everything. Before we begin this unforgettable journey, if you believe kindness always finds its way back, even when life feels unfair, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community that believes in forgiveness, compassion, and second chances. Every weekday morning, Colton Reeves woke before sunrise, even though he no longer had a job waiting for him. His little daughter, Brielle, was only 7 years old, and she believed her father could fix almost anything except his own sadness. Ever since losing his position at a manufacturing company, Colton had hidden his worries behind warm smiles so his daughter would never feel the weight resting on his shoulders. The company had blamed him for a costly shipping mistake. Despite years of loyal service, he was dismissed within minutes. His supervisor refused to hear his explanation, and every coworker simply watched as he packed his belongings into a cardboard box. Colton walked away with no paycheck, no savings, and no promise that tomorrow would be better. Yet every morning, before searching for another job, Colton visited his elderly neighbor, Margaret Ellison. Margaret was 86 years old and lived alone after losing her husband many years earlier. Her knees had become too weak to carry groceries, her eyesight had faded, and even watering the flowers in her tiny garden had become difficult. Without being asked, Colton began helping her. He brought fresh bread, carried her mail inside, trimmed the hedges, fixed loose shelves, and simply sat with her while she shared stories from decades ago. Margaret always tried to pay him with folded bills hidden inside greeting cards, but Colton gently returned every dollar. Helping her reminded him that even when the world judged a person's value by a paycheck, kindness still had its own quiet worth. One bright Tuesday morning, Margaret smiled nervously and admitted she had forgotten an important doctor's appointment because she had been worried about her son visiting from another city. She explained that her son rarely came home anymore. Their relationship had become distant after years of misunderstandings, and she feared this visit would only create more silence. She asked Colton if he could drop off a homemade apple pie at her son's house before the appointment. Without hesitation, Colton agreed. He carefully carried the warm pie and grocery bag across town. The address led him to one of the nicest neighborhoods he had ever seen. As he climbed the front steps, he straightened his worn jacket and knocked politely. The door slowly opened. Standing there was Grant Holloway. The same executive who had fired him. Time seemed to stop. Grant's confident expression vanished the instant he recognized Colton. The cardboard box. The security escort. The humiliation. Every painful memory returned in a single heartbeat. Grant looked stunned. Colton looked equally surprised. Only then did both men realize they shared a connection neither had ever imagined. Grant was Margaret's son. Grant quietly stepped aside and invited Colton inside. The elegant home felt strangely empty despite its expensive furniture. Family photographs covered one wall, yet almost every picture showed Grant alone. Only one old photograph included Margaret. Dust rested on the frame. Colton gently placed the pie on the kitchen counter and explained that Margaret had been worried about him. Grant lowered his head. For years, he had convinced himself that his demanding career justified every missed birthday, every unanswered phone call, and every cancelled visit. He had become successful in business while slowly becoming a stranger to his own mother. Seeing someone else care for her every single morning shattered something deep inside him. He asked why Colton continued helping after losing his job. Colton simply answered that kindness should never depend on convenience. Those simple words echoed louder than any speech Grant had ever heard. After Colton left, Grant drove straight to his mother's house. For the first time in years, he noticed everything. The cracked front steps. The loose mailbox. The fading paint. The lonely silence inside the home. But he also noticed fresh flowers in the garden. The repaired porch railing. Clean windows. Fresh groceries. Someone had quietly filled every empty space that a son should have filled himself. Margaret welcomed Grant with tears instead of anger. She hugged him as though no time had passed. Watching them embrace made Colton quietly step outside, giving them the private moment they both deserved. Over the following days, Grant found himself unable to forget what had happened. He reviewed Colton's employment file. What he discovered left him ashamed. The shipping mistake had never been Colton's fault. An internal software error had created incorrect labels, and another department had failed to report the problem before blaming the easiest employee. Grant had signed the termination papers without personally investigating. His decision had destroyed an innocent father's livelihood. The realization stayed with him every hour. A week later, Grant drove to Colton's modest home. He found Brielle drawing colorful pictures on the front porch while her father repaired an old bicycle someone had thrown away. The little girl proudly explained that her dad fixed broken things because he believed everything deserved another chance. Grant struggled to hold back tears. He finally understood that Colton had lived by those words long before anyone noticed. Grant apologized sincerely. Not with excuses. Not with corporate language. Only honest regret. He admitted he had valued speed over truth and authority over compassion. He offered Colton his old job back immediately, along with full back pay and a promotion, leading a new employee support program designed to ensure no worker would ever again be dismissed without a complete investigation. Colton remained silent for several moments. He had imagined this moment many times. He had imagined anger. He had imagined revenge. Instead, he remembered Margaret's gentle smile. He remembered Brielle watching everything from the porch. Children learn forgiveness by watching adults. Colton accepted the apology. Not because the pain disappeared, but because carrying bitterness would only create another wound. Returning to work felt different this time. Co-workers who once avoided eye contact now greeted him warmly. Grant introduced new policies that encouraged fairness, transparency, and respect throughout the company. Employees noticed the change immediately. The workplace slowly became known not just for productivity but for treating people with dignity. Meanwhile, Grant visited his mother every weekend. They planted flowers together. Cooked family recipes. Sorted old photographs. Slowly, years of distance gave way to simple conversations filled with laughter instead of regret. Margaret often smiled quietly as she watched both men talking in her garden. She liked to believe that kindness had traveled in a full circle. Months later, Brielle performed in her school talent show. Parents filled every seat. Margaret sat proudly in the front row. Grant arrived carrying flowers for both Brielle and his mother. When Brielle finished singing, the audience rose in applause. Colton looked around and realized something remarkable. The family surrounding him had not been created by blood alone. It had been built by compassion, forgiveness, humility, and everyday acts of kindness. Before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you.